What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're taking a look at the wide receivers that have increased the most in ADP since the NFL draft. Take a look at what their new ADPs are, how much I'd want to draft them in that range. Start things off with the trade that happened recently, just kind of how it's impacted both George Pickens and DK Metcalf. So this offseason, Metcalf signs a 4-year, $132 million contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers, $60 million fully guaranteed. That's the fourth largest contract among wide receivers right now in terms of total money, only ninth most, I guess, in terms of practical guarantees, but still, it's a massive deal and a very clear indication of how much the Steelers wanted Metcalf. Then the Steelers traded away George Pickens and a 2027 sixth-round pick for a 2026 third-rounder and a 2027 fifth-rounder. We also know that the Cowboys do not plan on extending Pickens before the season, so he's going to play out the final year of his rookie deal, and then he'll look for a new contract in the offseason. Since the trade, Pickens is by far the largest mid-round riser. There's some players going in the super late rounds, think like pick 180, 200, that have risen more than some of the players we'll talk about today. But today's video is going to mostly focus on like the middle rounds and push in to the early rounds, not too much focusing on someone who's risen from like 215 to 200. Pretty much the same thing. These middle round guys, when they increase by a little bit, it actually does impact drafts a lot. So among all mid and early round players, Pickens has seen his ADP increase the most. He's gone from an early 7th round pick on Underdog to a mid 5th round pick. He's now the wide receiver 31 in drafts, more of like a mid 6th round pick in redraft leagues. Metcalf, meanwhile, is up about half a round since the trade, going from the 4th pick in round 5 to the 10th pick in round 4. Seems like both these two are going to stabilize around the wide receiver like 25 to 29, making them high-end wide receiver 3s in fantasy. So what do we think of that value? Start off with DK Metcalf. I right now have him as the wide receiver 25. That's a little bit ahead of ADP. Over his 6-year career, Metcalf has never had fewer than 100 targets, never had fewer than 900 receiving yards. He's never played fewer than 15 games in a season. We love to see that across 6 seasons. And then last season was actually his worst in terms of touchdowns with only 5. So he's going to get us touchdowns. He's going to get us the yardage. He's going to be out there in fantasy. Things we love from our wide receiver, right? The Steelers, just massive investment in him. Again, that's the 4th most money in terms of total money in the contract among all wide receivers in the NFL right now. They value him heavily. I just feel like he's an incredibly safe pick, one that comes with very obvious upside. I mean, Metcalf is 6'3", 228 pounds, has 4.33 speed. This is, 100th percentile, 99th percentile height adjusted speed. Like, he is an absolute monster. And at times, it truly felt like Seattle just had no idea that was the case. Like, if you told them that, they'd be like, wait, what? He's big and fast? We didn't know this, right? So he's the clear number 1 wide receiver in Pittsburgh right now. I at least am hoping, I think everyone in the community is hoping, that they're going to treat him like a true number 1 wide receiver, get the ball into his hands as much as possible. I do think that's the case. Why would you give someone that much money and not do that? It would be pretty weird, right? So the obvious concern there, of course, is they try to do that, but who's their quarterback going to be? We don't really know that at this time. There's also the potential for a pretty low volume passing attack no matter who the quarterback is. But in terms of pass attempts per game, Metcalf's teams have ranked 24th, 20th, 32nd, 15th, 17th, and then 6th last season in terms of pass attempts per game. But last season also, it jumps up to 6, but he had the most competition of his career that season. Pretty strange usage, honestly, under Ryan Grubb. I thought Grubb was going to come in and throw the ball a ton, which he did, but I thought he'd be a little smarter about it than he was, so not shocking that he's going to be a one and done in the NFL. So realistically, we look at what Metcalf has been on, and it's like the risk that Pittsburgh's super low volume passing attack is lower because he's already been on super low volume passing attacks and he's been good in fantasy. So I'm not too concerned about that. But again, that's why he's not, a top 15 wide receiver, because the volume will probably be low. We don't know the quarterback. So even though, he's awesome and he's going to be a clear number one receiver, I mean, look at who they have behind him. It's nothing. That's why I'm at 25. I could see myself moving him up maybe closer to 20, but he's pretty much always this offseason, I think, just going to be a player that I like because the talent is there. The opportunity should be there. I think he's going to be a really strong pick for us this season. As for Pickens, I do think that he should be behind Metcalf by ADP, but I really like taking him as well. Yes, he's behind CeeDee Lamb. Of course, CeeDee Lamb is still going to be a stud. CeeDee Lamb still my wide receiver 3 overall. He's going to be awesome this season. Totally fine taking him. But the Cowboys attempted 8 more pass attempts per game than the Pittsburgh Steelers last season, and that number would have been larger had Dak Prescott not gotten injured. There were 470 non-CeeDee Lamb targets on Dallas last season, compared to 460 total targets available on the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. So it doesn't really matter that CeeDee Lamb is on the team. You can pretend that he's not even there. Remove all of his targets. This is still a volume upgrade, just with better quarterback play and more relaxed coverage, because we know that teams are going to focus on CeeDee Lamb as a primary threat now and not George Pickens. So if we consider that, Pickens ended last offseason as the wide receiver 31 by ADP, this is a clear upgrade. He should be going ahead of that now. He's not yet, so I would expect his ADP to continue to rise. We will see where it ends up, but even to where it's risen right now, both Metcalf and Pickens are great picks in drafts right now, again, even at their new ADPs. Another notable riser is Rashee Rice. He's up 8 spots, going from the 401 to the 305, now the wide receiver 18. I feel like the market really just has no idea what to do with Rashee Rice right now. So he tore his LCL back in week 4 last season. And I do think a lot of people think it was the ACL. It wasn't. So the timeline for a torn LCL is much better than ACL. And even if it were ACL, week 4 is much better spot. We're going to talk about someone who tore their ACL in week 8 last season. There's been players like Christian Watson tore it super late in the season. Week 4 is pretty early. That gives us a much, much better chance of returning. But it wasn't even an ACL. Again, it was an LCL, which has an even better timeline. So there's a pretty good chance that he's totally fine coming off the injury by week 1. He does have this legal issue kind of hanging over his head, though. Remember, he left the scene after causing a crash in a street race last season. Given how these things work out, whenever something happens, it's pretty much always pushed to the next season. The NFL never wants to do anything until the legal process is totally taken care of. And NFL players know that, so they typically push the legal process into the following offseason. You can't push it forever, though. So, of course, that's going to kind of play out. Then the league will kind of hand down a punishment. No one can ever predict what Roger Goodell is thinking, what he's going to do. But I would imagine we're looking at anywhere from 2 to 6 games. It would be pretty shocking if it were more than 6 games. And my guess as a non-legal expert is that we're seeing closer to 4 games here. And honestly, let's pretend it's 4. Right? And as an average outcome, maybe that's what we should kind of just be baking in to projections, baking into our expectation. Given that it's that long, it really wouldn't be the end of the world if it comes at the start of the season, which it likely would. He's recovering from this injury, so a few games into the year, if he misses that, it's just a better chance that he's 100% when he returns, and a better chance that we can fully trust him when he returns. And from a strategy standpoint on your team, if you could pick any chunk of time for your early round pick to miss, it's early in the season, right? You don't have any bye weeks to worry about, so your team's at full strength with byes. You probably don't have any or don't only have a few injuries, so you might look at your roster in weeks 1, 2, 3, fully locked and loaded, fully good to go. That is the easiest time to take someone out of wide receiver 2 and throw someone else in there. It's not going to be that hard to maybe shift your flex up, put a different person in flex. It's not going to be that difficult to replace his production over the first 4 weeks of the season if he were suspended for 4 weeks. What if it turns out to be 2 weeks and he was already going to be limited, and you get him back in week 3 and he's a wide receiver 1. Because remember, he was awesome last season when he was actually playing. He came off an incredible rookie season. He was a wide receiver 4 overall through 3 weeks. Everyone knew when you started watching the Kansas City Chiefs offense in weeks 1, 2, 3, you're like, oh my goodness, Rashee Rice is going to be a massive league winner. It's not like that's going to completely go away. Again, it was not an ACL. It's not something we should worry too much about. And even if it were an ACL, younger players recover so much faster from that, and especially from what they used to do in the past. Everyone recovers faster, but younger players specifically recover much faster from that, and it wasn't even an ACL. It was LCL. Honestly, I think I've been a little bit too low on him. I'm bumping him up in the rankings after this video because it's not that much of a concern, even if he starts slow, even if we have this legal issue. By the part of the season where you really need him back, need him playing, he's probably going to be good to go, probably going to be locked and loaded, probably going to be producing as a low-end wide receiver 1. I'm cool taking that risk even in the early rounds. A mid-round riser that I'm not able to get behind as much is Stefon Diggs. He continues to rise up 4 more spots to wide receiver 42, early 7th round pick. I'm actually 2 rounds behind ADP right now on Stefon Diggs, which doesn't feel good as a Patriots fan, and I do hope that I'm wrong. But I don't know. I just kind of don't see it. Like, Diggs turns 32 in November. He is coming off a torn ACL. He tore that in week 8 last season. That not only puts him at risk of just straight up missing the early part of the season, but it makes it more likely that we see a decline in play this season for a lot of players, especially past age 27. Age 27 is kind of like a cutoff for wide receivers. Younger than 27, we expect that return to performance to be much quicker, them in the following season to perform better. After 27, it's not as good. So at nearly 32 years old, there's absolutely a risk that he starts off not even playing, comes in, needs to get ramped up, and then even when he is ramped up, isn't what he used to be before that. I think people are also going to look at the contract and be like, well, he signed a really big 3-year deal. There's a very easy out for New England after only 1 season. So he's on effectively a 1-year deal for a lot less money than it looks like in the contract. So I don't know. I just think that like this is more of a situation where they're like, can we get someone in here for now? We need another season of having, a decent wide receiver. Or we need a season of having a decent wide receiver on the outside. And that's another thing. It's like, I think people are also kind of assuming, and I've seen many reports of this, people are saying he's going to work out of the slot. I don't really see that. Like, I guess he played the slot a lot in Houston. He was productive there because he's a very productive slot wide receiver. I just don't agree that they're going to do that. Like, they're not exactly flush with wide receiver talent on the outside. You could argue that last season, you almost can't argue against last season that Douglas was their best wide receiver. Well, he's slot only. So are you really going to say, okay, move Diggs into the slot? Our best wide receiver from last season, don't even play him because you can't play him on the outside, so he just wouldn't be in the lineup at all. And you're going to go with what? You're going to go with Kyle Williams in the outside, Diggs in the slot, and then what? Booty, Bourne, Hollins, Polk on the outside? Like, pretty much a list of scrubs there. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to have Diggs on the outside. He's finally someone that can win on the outside. Going to have Kyle Williams there as well. He'll mix into the slot, but I still think Demario Douglas is going to be their slot wide receiver. That's another negative for Stefon Diggs. I don't know. I think just overall, yes, the Patriots offense is going to be better this season. It can't get much worse. They have a lot of playmakers. It's going to be better, but that also just means everyone's opportunity share is going to be a little bit more spread out. And I'm just worried that we're going to see a relatively decent sized drop in production, drop in performance coming off this major knee injury, being older, changing teams. I don't see it. So I'm going to be behind ADP on Diggs probably all season, especially if he keeps rising all off season, of course. Last player over today is Calvin Ridley. He's up a half round in the draft, which I suppose makes sense, right? Another one that I'm not in love with, but I can see the thought process here. The Titans didn't spend up in free agency, didn't spend up in the draft, but they did sign Tyler Lockett, who is a guy that is a proven wide receiver, going to be on the field, going to command some targets. He's not going to have like 1,200 receiving yards, but he's going to be fine. He's going to be used. They did take 2 wide receivers in round 4, so it's not like they did nothing at wide receiver in the offseason. And I get that Cam Ward is obviously going to be an upgrade over Will Levis, over Mason Rudolph, who they had last year. But at the end of the day, Ridley was the wide receiver 40 in points per game last season. and he now has more target competition and turns 31 in December. So taking him now as the wide receiver 30 feels a little aggressive. Right now by ADP, he's going ahead of George Pickens, ahead of Jalen Waddle, Addison, Chris Olave, Rome Odunze, Chris Godwin. I have that entire range ahead of him, and I feel pretty good about that. Maybe you don't think that everyone I just listed is better, but that's a range where it'd be pretty hard to convince me that Calvin Ridley is a better pick than all of those guys. You also you really want to think about ceiling outcomes, and I just don't see any sort of ceiling with Ridley. Again, he has more target competition than he had last season, and he finishes wide receiver 40 in points per game. I just don't think that Cam Ward is going to make such a difference that he's going to blow past, because that's what he'd need to do to bury you, right? Is to blow past the wide receiver 30, finish as a clear wide receiver 2. Again, that is what would need to occur to really sink you for passing on him. Since I don't think that's really in his range of outcomes, I'm good fading him. I don't think it's going to bury me. I don't think it's going to be the reason I don't win a championship. Either take one of the wide receivers I just mentioned or the running backs in this range going behind him. RJ Harvey, Ken Walker, Travion Henderson, Alvin Kamara, Judkins. I don't know. That's a pretty good range of running back as well. So there's just a lot of really good players to take. Ridley feels like a floor play when there's a bunch of ceiling plays around him. Take the ceiling plays. So please leave a like if you watched this far. It is greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you are new here. We've got 5 videos a week until July, probably 7 videos a week after that. So if you want more free content, why not subscribe? It is completely free to do so. That'll do it for this one, though. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow to go over some players that I am fading in drafts right now.